What's up, you amazing people? Welcome back to Jimmy Talks. If you're a subscriber, it's amazing to be able to talk to you again. And if you're new and hear from the algorithm, I'm overjoyed to have you here, truly. Come one, come all, you're all welcome here. All right, let's get right into it and talk about this mess. This video is going to drop some serious red pills, and it's extremely important because this stuff isn't even talked about often. The obesity epidemic. The United States is grappling with an obesity epidemic that is both alarming and historically unprecedented. According to the most recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, over 42% of American adults are obese, a figure that has more than tripled since the 1960s when rates lingered around 13%. A century ago, in the early 1900s, obesity was exceptionally rare, affecting less than 5% of the population. How did we go from 5% of people being obese to almost half the country? Black and white photographs from the 1920s and the 1930s depict leaner Americans, even among those with sedentary occupations like clerks and shopkeepers. This wasn't a society obsessed with gym memberships or diet fads. People simply ate in a way that aligned with their biology. Their diets consisted of whole foods, like fresh vegetables from local gardens, fruits that were in season, whole grains like wheat, and dairy from nearby cow farmers, and meats from animals raised on small farms. Meals were prepared at home, often from scratch with modest portion sizes. Processed foods existed but were very limited. Canned vegetables or smoked meats preserved for winter, not transformed into unrecognizable products. Fast food chains were pretty much non existent for the most part, and dining out was a rare treat. This dietary pattern, rooted in natural ingredients, supported human health for millennia. Let's get into the history behind this, and the history won't be long, I promise. The juicy stuff is coming up. Just be patient and hear me out. The history behind this is super important to the middle and later parts of the video, though. Anyways, the shift began after World War II with the rise of industrial agriculture. Advances in technology and chemistry transformed farming into a profit driven enterprise. One key strategy here was the use of hormones and antibiotics to accelerate livestock growth. In the 1920s, a chicken took approximately 16 weeks to reach a weight of 2.5 pounds, living a natural life that developed its muscle and flavor. By the 1990s, with hormones and selective breeding, chickens reached 5 pounds in just 6 weeks. Compare 6 weeks to 16. This dramatic increase in size and speed boosted profitability, allowing large farms to produce more meat at lower costs. However, this came at a very significant cost. The meat lost its natural taste and nutritional quality. That chicken from the 1920s was typically only seasoned with salt, pepper, and perhaps a single herb like thyme or rosemary, while cooked in butter was rich, savory, and deeply satisfying. Today, industrial raised chickens often taste bland, and people will have to cook them with a blend of 10 or more spices, marinades, and sauces just to be palatable. The same applies to beef and pork, where hormone treated animals lack the robust flavor of grass fed or pasture raised counterparts, which develop complex taste profiles from their natural diets. This brings me on to my next section: artificial flavors. To compensate for this flavor loss, the food industry introduced artificial flavors, sometimes even called natural flavors, due to basically legalese word meaning workarounds, which are synthetic compounds designed to mimic the taste of natural foods. So we pretty much got animals to grow really fast, they lost their taste, and now we need to pump them full of artificial flavors. You can already see how bad this is getting. These are now ubiquitous, though, found in packaged meats, salty snacks, sugary sodas, and even products marketed as healthy, like flavored yogurt. Artificial flavors are engineered to be hyperpalatable, meaning they trigger intense pleasure responses in the brain, known as dopamine, through precise combinations of taste and aroma. However, they offer no nutritional value as it's not real and it's made in a lab. Research, including studies published in the National Institute of Health, has raised concerns about their long term safety, linking them to inflammation, digestive disorders, and potential neurological effects when consumed in large quantities. Basically, in layman's terms, for non medical people, inflammation is almost never good most of the time, and not digesting food properly is incredibly bad for you. Despite these findings, they remain a staple of the modern food supply, driven by corporate interests. They make this addicting and tasty on purpose, which leads me to the next section: ethics and studies. This brings us to the ethical dimension, which a beginner college ethics 101 course could easily dissect. Big food corporations, which are the giants dominating the industry, like Pepsi, Tyson, Nestle, Kraft, and General Mills, they fund scientific studies to influence public perception and regulatory decisions. In other words, they make a scientific, air quote, study go to a specific outcome. So that's not really science, you're just paying a scientist to say something. A study might conclude that artificial flavors or ultra processed foods are, air quote, safe or, air quote, nutritionally equivalent to whole foods, only for it to later emerge that the research was sponsored by a food conglomerate. We can very easily see how the waters are muddied here. From a utilitarian perspective, which evaluates actions based on their impact on the greatest number, this practice is unethical because it harms millions by promoting unhealthy eating habits. From a deontological standpoint, which emphasizes adherence to moral rules, it violates the principle of honesty by deceiving consumers and regulators. This manipulation prioritizes profit over public health, a trend that has deep roots in the structure of our food system. This brings me on to the government colluding with food companies. One major contributor is the role of the United States Department of Agriculture, which is the USDA. The USDA provides subsidies, which is financial compensation to lower the price of goods to support agricultural production. But these funds disproportionately benefit large industrial farms rather than small farmers, your mom and pop kind of places. Billions of dollars are allocated to grow commodity crops like corn, soy, and wheat, which are used to produce the cheap, calorie dense ingredients found in ultra processed foods driving the obesity epidemic. And let me clarify here, by the way, before I even get it in the comments. Ultra processed food is much more different than simply processed foods. To make this quick and easy, basically UPF foods are the stuff with chemicals that you can't find in your house, like something like a honey bun. Just look at the label on the back. Processed food can be as simple as just baking bread. Anyways, these subsidies allow industrial farms owned by, again, major food companies to operate at scale, basically, which means it can outgrow mom and pop farmers dramatically, which means it undercuts smaller farmers that might focus on diverse, nutrient rich crops or sustainable practices. Small farmers, who often lack the resources to compete, receive minimal support, leading to their decline and slash, or being in a mountain of debt. This imbalance entrenches a food system that prioritizes quantity and profit over quality and health, leaving hardworking Americans with limited access to whole, unprocessed options. My fellow countrymen, we cannot accept such disgusting practices. We the people deserve to be healthy and happy, not misled and used so that a greedy slime ball can make you unhealthy and get rich off of it. Side note, with that being said, do not start commenting some communist leftist stuff under my video because I am not that whatsoever. I am the opposite, actually. Okay, moving on to the next big issue: corporate ownership and shareholder issues. Corporate ownership and private shareholders further complicate the picture. Investment firms like BlackRock, which focus solely on maximizing financial returns, hold majority shares in many major food companies through the stock market. BlackRock's mission is to generate substantial profits for its investors, and one of its strategies is to pour money into food corporations to make their products addictive. They fund research and development to perfect formulations, blending sugar, fat, and salt in ways that override natural satiety signals, keeping consumers buying more. Basically, your body will tell you when you crave a food, but what it really means is that you're craving the nutrients that it contains. Something savory and hearty, beef soup. But you might confuse this with Taco Bell, which has almost none of the nutritional value that some legit beef soup would have. And this isn't about nourishment, it's about creating a cycle of consumption that boosts stock prices. The health consequences, including rising obesity rates, are secondary to the bottom line, illustrating a profit driven agenda that shapes what ends up on our plates. This brings me on to my next point: foreign influence. Another layer involves foreign influence over our agricultural foundation. Countries like China, through companies like Syngenta, owned by ChemChina, supply a significant portion of the seed stock for American crops. Before I even go further, do you want to eat anything at all from a Chinese chemical company? Hell no. That's my opinion anyways, a hard F no. Anyways, these seeds are often genetically modified to maximize yields, meaning you get the most you can grow out of it, designed for the industrial farming model. However, this focus on profit over sustainability leads to practices that harm both the environment and public health. First of all, messing with genetics in a plant will harm its nutritional value, not giving you the nutrients that you need, but who cares? You can grow a lot of it and make a lot of money. Screw people's health. Instead of using crop rotation, which naturally replenishes soil nutrients and maintains ecosystem balance, which is extremely important, instead, industrial farmers rely heavily on synthetic fertilizers. Again, before I go further, does synthetic fertilizer sound like you want to put it on a plate and eat? No, hard no. I'm not fertilizer maxing. Anyways, these fertilizers, though, rich in nitrogen, are applied in excess, and when it rains, the runoff washes into waterways, particularly the Mississippi River. This river carries the nitrogen into the Gulf of America, where it fuels massive algae blooms. As the algae decompose, they deplete oxygen levels, creating dead zones where marine life cannot survive. The largest of these dead zones, off the Louisiana coast, spans thousands of square miles, and the full extent of the ecological damage remains unknown, posing a long term threat to biodiversity and fisheries. Like, come on. This brings me on to my next point: pesticides. Pesticides add yet another layer of concern. Major farm companies spray crops with chemical pesticides to protect yields and ensure uniformity, but these substances have been linked to serious health issues. Research, including studies from the National Institute of Health, links pesticides with developmental disorders like ADHD, cancers such as leukemia, neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, and reproductive problems including fertility. These chemicals persist on the food, entering our bodies with every single meal, contributing to chronic health conditions. Even the organic label, often seen as a healthier alternative, can be misleading. Many organic products are allowed to use approved pesticides, which may still pose risk to human health. The organic certification process is rigorous in theory, but in practice, it's exploited as a marketing tool, a cash grab to charge premium prices without delivering a meaningful difference in safety or nutrition. This erodes consumer trust and highlights the need for greater transparency. Let me go back and expound further on food flavorings and tricking your taste buds, though, which leads me to my next point and kind of goes back to artificial flavors. Your taste buds are being tricked. Our taste buds reflect the crisis unfolding in this food system. They serve as biological signals, guiding us towards the nutrients we need. A craving for a juicy steak might indicate a need for protein, iron, or vitamin B12, while a desire for a sweet fruit could signal a requirement for vitamin C or natural sugars. Animals in nature exhibit similar behavior. Deer seek specific grasses or mineral licks to address nutrient deficiencies, and bees target nectar on flowers for energy. Our ancestors relied on these cues, eating whole foods that satisfied both taste and nutritional needs. Artificial flavors disrupt this natural mechanism. They mimic the taste of nutrient rich foods. Strawberry flavored snacks taste like fruit but lack vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants. Your body expects nourishment but receives empty calories, triggering overeating. The brain, sensing the nutritional gap, continues signaling hunger, driving the obesity epidemic. I hope this makes sense now. Ultra processed foods, engineered with addictive sugar, fat, and salt taste profiles, continue the cycle, keeping us trapped in a loop of consumption. We must take our food back. My fellow Americans deserve much better than this. Much of this situation is nonsensical. The notion that we need hormone pumped meat, artificial flavors, pesticide laden crops, industrial subsidized food, and fake meat like impossible burgers to feed ourselves is a construct of greedy leeches making money off of us. It's absurd that a chicken requires a dozen spices to taste good, that organic labels mislead us, or that dead zones threaten our oceans while we consume chemically altered foods. This isn't how humans were meant to eat, and it's not sustainable for our health. You may be asking now, how do I avoid this junk? Fortunately, we can take action by returning to whole foods. My diet centers on ground beef, chicken, fish, eggs, wheat, fruits, and vegetables, and I try to get most of this straight from small farmers. These are versatile options that satisfy a range of cravings. Meats, eggs, and cheese provide a satiating, savory experience, meeting needs for protein and healthy fats. A well-cooked steak and some scrambled eggs can be deeply fulfilling without excessive seasoning. For sweet cravings, plain Greek yogurt, and I specified Greek yogurt as it's the most natural form and unflavored, okay? Mixed with a drizzle of honey, fresh blueberries, and some plain unflavored granola offers a dessert-like treat that's very nutrient dense. The yogurt provides probiotics and calcium, The honey and fruit deliver natural sugars and vitamins, and the granola adds fiber and texture. This combination satisfies the desire for sweetness without the empty calories of ultra processed foods like a honey bun or something. Other whole foods like roasted potatoes with olive oil and a pinch of salt, or whole grains like couscous or brown rice or white rice add variety and sustain energy. These foods, close to their natural state, don't require artificial enhancements. A hint of garlic, cumin, rosemary, thyme, paprika, and butter elevates them naturally. This approach mirrors how our ancestors ate in the 1920s and much, much further before that, when a single spice could transform a meal into a flavorful, nourishing experience. Just to add in, by the way, I cook everything with either olive oil, avocado oil, or butter. To wrap this up, though, the obesity epidemic is a symptom of a deeply flawed food system. The USDA subsidies prop up industrial farms, sidelining small farmers and flooding the market with cheap, processed ingredients. BlackRock's profit driven ownership of food companies fuels addiction through engineered foods, and they aren't the only company that does this. Foreign seed control by China and Syngenta, coupled with fertilizer misuse, creates dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. Pesticides linked to ADHD, cancer, Parkinson's, and infertility. They contaminate our food, while organic labels often fail to deliver on their promise, serving as a cash grab. By choosing whole foods, we can align with our biology, support sustainable agriculture, and break the cycle of overconsumption. And guys, it's not about perfection, but about intentional choices. Opt for an apple over a candy bar, pasture-raised meat over fast food, or a homemade meal over a packaged one. These decisions matter for our health, the environment, and the small farmers fighting to preserve real food. Just as a general rule of thumb, try to stay on the outsides of the grocery stores, like the outside of on the inside is typically where all the crap food is, and if you stay around the outer edges, typically it's just a rule of thumb. Typically, this food will be more healthy for you. Guys, if you enjoyed this content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. My goal with this channel is to encourage young men to be knowledgeable and strong, as well as equipped to deal with threats in this information age full of propaganda and evil people. I make this content for you all, my viewers, and without you, I wouldn't even be making videos. Let me know in the comments what topics you'd like to see covered. If I'm well enough versed in it, I will definitely do a video on it. I love you all. Stay true to yourselves. Like I always say, Jimmy Talks out.